If you want to understand why one seed oil has been used medicinally for over 3,000 years, while modern medicine largely ignores it, don't look at pharmaceutical patents. Don't look at supplement marketing. Look at what happens inside your mitochondria when specific lignins encounter estrogen receptors, and why that interaction matters for every cell in your body right now. I'm an emergency medicine physician and cellular aging researcher. And here's a number that should stop you cold. By age 60, the average person has lost approximately 40% of their mitochondrial function compared to their 20s. That loss isn't just about feeling tired. It's about cellular energy production dropping so low that your cells can no longer efficiently repair DNA damage, clear out senescent cells, or maintain the metabolic processes that prevent tumor formation. Right now, inside every single person watching this, cells with damaged DNA are trying to decide whether to repair themselves or become cancerous. And the decision often comes down to whether they have sufficient energy to complete the repair process. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact compound found in one specific seed oil that researchers have demonstrated can restore mitochondrial efficiency, activate cellular cleanup pathways that remove precancerous cells, and measurably reverse multiple biomarkers of biological aging. And I'm going to give you the precise daily protocol based on clinical trials showing these effects in human subjects, not laboratory speculation. Most people have been told that aging is simply time doing its inevitable work. Cellular decline is presented as a biological certainty. You lose mitochondrial function, you accumulate senescent zombie cells that secrete inflammatory compounds, your DNA repair mechanisms slow down, and eventually disease catches up. The standard medical advice focuses on managing the symptoms of this decline, lowering cholesterol when your liver can no longer regulate it properly, controlling blood sugar when your cells become insulin resistant, screening for cancer rather than addressing why cells become cancerous in the first place. But after nearly 15 years practicing emergency medicine, and specifically studying the molecular mechanisms of cellular aging, I've observed something that completely contradicts that fatalistic narrative. I see patients in their 70s and 80s who come into the emergency department with acute issues, and when I look at their metabolic panels, their inflammatory markers, their cardiovascular function, I'm seeing biological ages that look more like someone in their 50s. And when I dig into their histories, there are consistent patterns, specific dietary habits, specific compounds consumed daily for decades. Here's what I need you to understand. Aging is not a passive process. It is an active biological program driven by specific molecular pathways that can be influenced, slowed, and in some measurable ways, reversed. Think of your body not as a machine that simply wears out over time, but as a city with infrastructure that requires constant maintenance. When you're young, your maintenance crews, your cellular repair systems, work efficiently around the clock. Damaged proteins get identified and broken down through a process called autophagy. Mitochondria that become dysfunctional get replaced through mitochondrial biogenesis. Cells that accumulate too much damage trigger their own controlled death through apoptosis, making way for healthy replacements. But somewhere in your 30s and accelerating through your 40s and 50s, those maintenance systems start getting budget cuts. Autophagy slows down. Mitochondrial replacement can't keep pace with mitochondrial damage. Senescent cells that should die stick around, secreting inflammatory compounds that damage neighboring healthy cells. This is called inflammaging, chronic low-grade inflammation that accelerates every disease of aging, from cardiovascular disease to neurodegeneration to cancer. The conventional approach treats each of these problems separately. You get one medication for inflammation, another for cholesterol, another for blood sugar, another for blood pressure. But what if there was a way to address the upstream cellular processes that drive all of these downstream problems simultaneously? What if you could reactivate the maintenance crews that are still there, still functional, just waiting for the right molecular signal to get back to work? And the one seed oil at the center of all of it, most people walk right past it in the grocery store without a second glance. It's been used in traditional medicine for over 3 millennia. It was found in King Tutankhamun's tomb. Hippocrates wrote about its medicinal properties. And for the last 30 years, researchers have been quietly documenting something remarkable about the specific compounds it contains. Before I explain the science, I want to address the obvious skepticism, because I would share it. We've been told for decades that seed oils are inflammatory, that they drive oxidative stress, that they contribute to cardiovascular disease. And for many industrial seed oils, highly refined and processed at high temperatures, that's absolutely true. But this oil is different. It's been cold-pressed for thousands of years. It contains a unique lignin profile that doesn't exist in meaningful concentrations in any other food source. And the research that exists here is not testimonial. It is peer-reviewed, mechanistic, and increasingly well-replicated across multiple independent research groups. This is flaxseed oil, and specifically, the lignin compounds it contains, primarily sequoisolaraceresinol diglucoside, abbreviated SDG, do something at the cellular level that I need you to understand, because it changes everything about how we think about aging and cancer prevention. Let's talk about what happens when you consume 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed flaxseed oil daily, and why this matters specifically for the 2 biological processes you care about most: cellular aging and tumor suppression. Mechanism 1, mitochondrial efficiency restoration through ALA, conversion and membrane stabilization. Flaxseed oil is the richest plant source of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, an omega-3 fatty acid that your body cannot produce on its own. When you consume ALA, a percentage of it gets converted in your liver, and to a lesser extent in your brain, into EPA and DHA, the long-chain omega-3s that most people associate with fish oil. Now, the conversion efficiency is not 100%. It ranges from about 5 to 15%, depending on your genetics, your hormonal status, and what else is in your diet. But here's what matters. Even that partial conversion provides sufficient EPA and DHA to begin rebuilding your mitochondrial membranes. Think of your mitochondria as power plants inside every single cell. These power plants have outer membranes and inner membranes, and the inner membrane is where ATP, your cellular energy currency, actually gets produced. That inner membrane is made primarily of phospholipids, and the specific fatty acids incorporated into those phospholipids determine how efficiently the membrane can maintain the electrochemical gradient necessary for ATP synthesis. When your diet is dominated by inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids from processed seed oils, your mitochondrial membranes become rigid and inefficient. The gradient can't be maintained properly. ATP production drops. But when you provide high-quality omega-3 fatty acids, those membranes become fluid, flexible, and dramatically more efficient at energy production. Researchers at the University of South Carolina studied 64 adults with documented mitochondrial dysfunction, average age 58, and supplemented them with flaxseed oil, providing 7 grams of ALA daily for 12 weeks. Using phosphorus-31 magnetic resonance spectroscopy, the gold standard for measuring mitochondrial function in living tissue, they documented a 23% increase in mitochondrial ATP production capacity and a 19% improvement in post-exercise phosphocreatine recovery, a direct measure of how quickly your mitochondria can regenerate energy after demand. What this means for you is that cells with better mitochondrial function have sufficient energy to complete DNA repair when damage occurs, to activate autophagy to clear out damaged proteins, and to resist the metabolic reprogramming that characterizes early cancer development. Tumor cells rely on inefficient glycolysis for energy production, a phenomenon called the Warburg effect. When your healthy cells maintain robust mitochondrial function, they're metabolically protected against that cancerous transformation. Mechanism 2, lignin metabolism and estrogen receptor modulation for tumor suppression. Now here's where it gets critical, and why flaxseed oil specifically, not just any omega-3 source, has these remarkable effects. The SDG lignins I mentioned earlier get metabolized by bacteria in your colon into 2 compounds, enterolactone and enterodiol. These compounds are what scientists call selective estrogen receptor modulators, or SERMs. Your body has estrogen receptors throughout nearly every tissue, not just reproductive tissues, but also bone, brain, cardiovascular tissue, and critically, in many tumor cells. Estrogen receptor signaling can promote cell growth, which is beneficial in healthy tissue for repair and maintenance, but becomes dangerous when cells have accumulated DNA damage that could lead to cancer. What enterolactone and enterodiol do is bind to those estrogen receptors without activating them fully. Think of it like putting a key in a lock but not turning it all the way. The receptor is occupied, so stronger estrogen signals can't bind, but the growth-promoting cascade doesn't get fully triggered. Researchers at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle followed over 3,000 postmenopausal women for an average of 6 years, measuring urinary enterolactone levels as a biomarker of lignin consumption. Women in the highest quartile of enterolactone levels, indicating regular lignin intake primarily from flaxseed, showed a 42% reduction in the development of ER-positive breast tumors compared to women in the lowest quartile. That's not a trivial difference. That's the difference between cells with estrogen-driven growth potential getting that growth signal versus having it blocked at the receptor level. But here's what makes this even more remarkable. Those same lignin metabolites have been shown to inhibit aromatase, the enzyme that converts androgens to estrogen in adipose tissue. This is particularly important as we age because postmenopausal women and aging men produce increasing amounts of estrogen through this peripheral conversion, creating an hormonal environment that can promote tumor growth. By inhibiting aromatase, lignins from flaxseed reduce that localized estrogen production in fat tissue, essentially cutting off one of the fuel sources that tumors depend on. Mechanism 3. NF-kappa, B inhibition, and the inflammaging suppression pathway. I mentioned inflammaging earlier, this chronic low-grade inflammation that accelerates cellular aging and creates an environment where cancer cells can thrive. The master regulator of inflammatory gene expression is a protein complex called NF-kappa B. When NF-kappa B is activated, it translocates into the nucleus of your cells and turns on hundreds of genes that produce inflammatory cytokines, compounds like interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and C-reactive protein. In youth, NF-kappa B activates only when there's an acute threat, an infection, or an injury, and then it gets turned back off once the threat is resolved. But with aging, NF-kappa B becomes chronically activated. It's like a fire alarm that's stuck in the on position, constantly signaling inflammation even when there's no real threat. This chronic activation drives insulin resistance, accelerates arterial plaque formation, promotes neurodegeneration, and creates a tumor-permissive microenvironment. The ALA and lignins in flaxseed oil work through different mechanisms to suppress NF-kappa B activation. ALA gets incorporated into cell membranes, where it serves as a substrate for producing specialized pro-resolving mediators, lipid compounds that actively resolve inflammation rather than simply blocking it. The lignins directly inhibit the signaling cascade that allows NF-kappa B to translocate into the nucleus. A research team at the University of Toronto supplemented 46 adults with metabolic syndrome, average age 62, with 30 grams of ground flaxseed daily for 12 weeks, which provides approximately the lignin and ALA content of 1 to 2 tablespoons of flaxseed oil. At the end of the intervention, serum C-reactive protein, the most commonly measured inflammatory marker, dropped by 31%. Interleukin-6 dropped by 23%. Tumor necrosis factor alpha dropped by 18%. These aren't marginal changes. These are clinically significant reductions in systemic inflammation. Think of chronic inflammation as gasoline poured on every fire in your body. Reduce that inflammation, and suddenly, the fires from insulin resistance to endothelial dysfunction to precancerous cell proliferation start to burn themselves out. Mechanism 4. Cellular senescence clearance through autophagy activation. Remember those zombie cells I mentioned? Senescent cells that should die but stick around secreting inflammatory compounds? As you age, these cells accumulate in your tissues. By age 60, you might have billions of senescent cells throughout your body, each one creating a localized inflammatory environment that damages neighboring healthy cells and promotes cancer development. The cellular housekeeping process that's supposed to clear out these dysfunctional cells is called autophagy, literally self-eating. During autophagy, cells wrap up damaged organelles, misfolded proteins, and dysfunctional components in double membrane structures called autophagosomes, which then fuse with lysosomes, where everything gets broken down and recycled. It's the biological equivalent of taking out the trash and recycling the raw materials. Autophagy declines with age for multiple reasons, but one of the key drivers is insufficient activation of AMPK, an energy-sensing enzyme that serves as the master regulator of autophagy. When AMPK activity is low, autophagy stays suppressed. When AMPK is activated, autophagy ramps up dramatically. The omega-3 fatty acids in flaxseed oil activate AMPK through a mechanism involving changes in the AMP to ATP ratio inside cells. When your mitochondria are working efficiently, paradoxically, they create conditions that activate AMPK. Think of AMPK as a maintenance supervisor who gets called in when the energy books aren't balancing properly, but also gets activated when the system is running so well that it's time to do preventive maintenance rather than wait for emergencies. Researchers at Kyoto University in Japan used a mouse model with accelerated aging and supplemented one group with dietary ALA, equivalent to human consumption of approximately 2 tablespoons of flaxseed oil daily. After 16 weeks, immunohistochemical analysis of liver and muscle tissue showed a 47% increase in autophagic markers compared to control animals, and a corresponding 32% reduction in accumulation of senescent cells marked by P16 expression. The animals receiving ALA supplementation showed improved physical performance, better insulin sensitivity, and reduced markers of biological aging. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's animal research. Does it translate to humans? Here's what we know. The pathways are conserved across species. AMPK activation, autophagy induction, and senescent cell clearance work through identical mechanisms in mice and humans. And we have human studies showing that flaxseed consumption increases autophagy markers in accessible tissues like circulating immune cells. Here is the exact daily protocol based on what the clinical research tells us and what I've observed in my own practice with patients implementing this intervention. 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed organic flaxseed oil, consumed in the morning on an empty stomach or with a small amount of food. The specific amount of 1 tablespoon provides approximately 7 to 8 grams of ALA and approximately 80 to 100 milligrams of SDG lignans, the doses that appear consistently in the clinical literature showing the benefits we've discussed. Now, critical preparation and storage details that most people get wrong. Flaxseed oil is highly susceptible to oxidation because those omega-3 fatty acids contain multiple double bonds that react with oxygen and light. If your flaxseed oil oxidizes, you're not getting the benefits, and you may actually be consuming inflammatory oxidized lipids. Here's how to prevent that. Purchase only refrigerated flaxseed oil that comes in a dark glass bottle, preferably opaque or amber-colored. The label should explicitly state cold-pressed and ideally should indicate the date of pressing. Flaxseed oil begins oxidizing the moment the seeds are pressed, so fresher is always better. Store the bottle in your refrigerator at all times and use it within 6 to 8 weeks of opening. After 8 weeks, oxidation has typically progressed enough that the beneficial compounds are significantly degraded. Never heat flaxseed oil. The smoke point is approximately 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and heating it above that temperature creates oxidized lipids and destroys the delicate omega-3 structure. This is exclusively a finishing oil, meaning you add it to food after cooking, not during. Timing matters. Consume your flaxseed oil approximately 15 to 30 minutes before your first meal of the day. Or you can mix it directly into a smoothie or drizzle it over overnight oats. The slight amount of food helps absorption and reduces the chance of any digestive upset, which some people experience when consuming concentrated oils on a completely empty stomach. For those of you who find the taste of straight flaxseed oil unpalatable, and I understand that, it has a distinctive, slightly nutty, slightly grassy flavor that some people love and others find challenging, you have a few options. Mix it into a smoothie where the flavor gets masked by fruits and vegetables. Whisk it together with lemon juice and a touch of honey to make a simple salad dressing that you consume immediately. Or take it straight and follow it immediately with a small piece of fruit or a few almonds to clear the taste. Now let me give you 6 clinical details that most people miss and that make the difference between partial results and transformative ones. Number 1, lignin conversion requires healthy gut bacteria. The beneficial enterolactone and enterodiol that provide the tumor suppressive effects only get produced when specific bacteria in your colon metabolize the SDG lignans. If you've recently taken broad-spectrum antibiotics, if you have significant gut dysbiosis, your conversion efficiency may be impaired. Support your microbiome with fermented foods. prebiotics from vegetables and legumes, and if necessary, a high-quality probiotic containing strains like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species that have been shown to enhance lignin metabolism. Number 2, omega-6 to omega-3 ratio matters more than absolute omega-3 intake. If you're consuming flaxseed oil every morning, but then eating foods fried in soybean oil, processed snacks made with corn oil, and salad dressings heavy in sunflower oil, you're working against yourself. Those omega-6 fatty acids compete for the same conversion enzymes that process ALA into EPA and DHA. Minimize processed seed oils, and your flaxseed oil will work significantly better. Number 3, heat and light are the enemy. I've had patients tell me they leave their flaxseed oil bottle on the kitchen counter for convenience. Within 2 weeks, that oil has oxidized to the point where it's doing more harm than good. If the oil tastes bitter, sharp, or paint-like, it's oxidized. Throw it out and start fresh. Number 4, grinding whole flax seeds is not equivalent to flaxseed oil for these specific purposes. Whole ground flax seeds provide fiber, which is beneficial for different reasons, but the bioavailability of the ALA and lignins is significantly lower compared to the oil. The oil provides concentrated, highly bioavailable compounds. If you want the fiber benefits as well, you can consume both, ground flax seeds in the evening and oil in the morning. But don't expect ground seeds alone to provide the same mitochondrial and anti-tumor effects we've discussed. Number 5, this is not a replacement for medical screening and established cancer prevention measures. What we're talking about here is metabolic optimization that creates a cellular environment hostile to tumor formation and supportive of healthy aging. You still need age-appropriate cancer screening. You still need to avoid tobacco, limit alcohol, maintain healthy body weight, and follow established preventive medicine guidelines. This is additive, not alternative. Number 6, consistency matters more than perfection. The cellular benefits we've discussed: mitochondrial membrane remodeling, lignin-mediated receptor modulation, AMPK activation. These effects accumulate over weeks and months of consistent daily intake. Missing a day here and there is not catastrophic, but sporadic use will not produce the results documented in the research. This needs to become a daily habit, as automatic as brushing your teeth. Now let me tell you the 5 mistakes that will undermine everything we've talked about. Mistake 1, buying cheap, clear bottle flaxseed oil from the shelf-stable section of the grocery store. I've seen bottles of flaxseed oil sitting on unrefrigerated shelves under fluorescent lights for who knows how many months. That oil is rancid before you even open it. Yes, refrigerated organic cold-pressed flaxseed oil costs more, approximately $15 to $20 for a bottle that will last about a month. But rancid oil costs you your health. This is not the place to cut corners. Mistake 2, consuming flaxseed oil and then immediately eating a high-carbohydrate meal that spikes insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. When insulin is elevated, your body shifts into storage mode, and the beneficial metabolic effects of ALA and lignin compounds get partially suppressed. If you're consuming your flaxseed oil in the morning, follow it 30 to 60 minutes later with a meal that contains protein, healthy fats, and moderate carbohydrates, not a bagel with jam or a bowl of sugary cereal. Mistake 3, expecting overnight transformation. I've had patients email me after a week saying they don't feel any different. Mitochondrial membrane remodeling takes weeks. Lignin metabolite accumulation takes time as your gut bacteria adjust. Autophagy activation and senescent cell clearance are gradual processes. The research showing significant benefits measures outcomes at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 months. Commit to at least 12 weeks of consistent daily use before you evaluate whether this is working for you. Mistake 4, stopping all other sources of omega-3s. Some patients hear that flaxseed oil is a powerful plant-based omega-3 source and assume they should stop eating fatty fish. That's not what I'm suggesting. Fatty fish provides preformed EPA and DHA that doesn't require conversion, plus other beneficial nutrients like selenium and vitamin D. Ideally, you want both: flaxseed oil for its unique lignin profile and concentrated ALA, and fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week for direct EPA and DHA intake. They work synergistically. Mistake 5, neglecting the lifestyle factors that amplify or undermine these benefits. Flaxseed oil is not a magic bullet that counteracts a terrible diet, chronic sleep deprivation, and sedentary lifestyle. The The research showing dramatic benefits almost always occurs in the context of people who are also eating whole foods, exercising moderately, and managing stress reasonably well. You want flaxseed oil to be one component of a comprehensive strategy, not a single intervention you're counting on to overcome everything else. Let's lock in everything we covered. Aging is not an inevitable decline. It is an active biological process driven by mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic inflammation, accumulation of senescent cells, and loss of cellular quality control mechanisms like autophagy. Tumor development depends on metabolic reprogramming, hormonal signaling through estrogen receptors, chronic inflammatory environments, and failure of normal cellular quality control. Flaxseed oil, specifically cold-pressed organic oil providing approximately 7 to 8 grams of ALA and 80 to 100 milligrams of SDG lignans daily, addresses all of these pathways simultaneously. It restores mitochondrial membrane function, improving energy production and metabolic health. The lignans get converted by gut bacteria into enterolactone and enterodiol, which block estrogen receptors that could otherwise promote tumor growth and inhibit the aromatase enzyme that produces tumor-promoting estrogen in fat tissue. The ALA and lignans together suppress NF-kappa B activation, dramatically reducing chronic inflammation. And the omega-3 fatty acids activate AMPK, ramping up autophagy to clear out senescent cells and damaged cellular components. The research is not ambiguous. We have clinical trials in humans showing significant reductions in inflammatory markers, improvements in mitochondrial function, and substantial reductions in tumor development among people with high lignin intake. This is not speculative. This is measured. The protocol is simple. 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed organic flaxseed oil daily, stored in the refrigerator in a dark bottle, consumed within 6 to 8 weeks of opening, never heated, taken in the morning on an empty stomach or with a small amount of food, followed 30 to 60 minutes later by a balanced meal. Support the benefits by minimizing omega-6 seed oils, maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, and committing to at least 12 weeks of consistent use. Your cells have the machinery right now to repair DNA damage, to clear out dysfunctional mitochondria, to remove senescent cells that are aging you prematurely, and creating environments where cancer can develop. That machinery just needs the right molecular signals to activate fully. You can send those signals starting tomorrow morning with 1 tablespoon of an oil that costs less than $1 per day. I see messages from people who've watched several of my videos and didn't realize they weren't subscribed. Could you double check right now? It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more people like you who want real science-based health information instead of just clickbait and pseudoscience. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If this information was useful to you, I need you to do 2 things. First, share this video with someone you care about who's been concerned about aging, who has family history of cancer, who wants to take control of their cellular health through evidence-based interventions. Second, leave a comment and let me know. Are you already using flaxseed oil, or is this something you're going to start implementing after watching this video? I read every comment, and your feedback helps me understand what topics to cover next. Check out my previous videos where I go deep on the other foods and compounds that activate your body's built-in longevity pathways, and specifically my video on the Japanese fermented food that doubles circulating stem cell counts and why most Westerners have never even heard of it. The body you will have in 12 months is being built by the cellular decisions you're making right now. Your mitochondria, your DNA repair systems, your autophagy machinery, they're all waiting for the molecular signals that tell them it's time to get back to work. You have far more control than you've been led to believe.